All righty. Well, welcome to another segment of the Real Mike Pittman podcast. And joining me on the show today is a very distinguished gentleman by the name of Rashod Johnson. He is the CEO of major
Ardmore.
engineering firm, Ardmore Roderick. Thank you, engineering firm out of Chicago, Illinois. And I'm going to let Roderick just kind of introduce himself and talk just a few seconds about himself in terms of the company. And I have several questions for him. So, first of all, thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. So,
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the invitation. So I'm Rashod Johnson, President and CEO of Ardmore Roderick. We are a local solutions-based infrastructure firm. We used to call ourselves an engineering firm, but now we're doing so much more than just engineering that we call ourselves an infrastructure solutions firm. So just about anything that any client has centered around infrastructure, there's a high likelihood that we know how to solve the problem, and that's what we're going to do. So we're about 300 people currently in 7 states across the country, and again, just here to solve large-scale infrastructure problems for clients.
wow. Now you said 7 states. What states are you in across the United States?
Yeah, so we're here in Chicago, Indiana, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We're in Texas. We're in Florida and Puerto Rico.
Oh, Puerto Rico as well. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Everybody's clamoring to get to the Puerto Rico office right about now in Chicago. That's for sure.
really, and why is that? Is it because
Because of the weather.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. Exactly. So, in terms of the way you expand your business, how do you identify markets in terms of where you would like to expand to? Right now, you're in 7 states, and is it because of the economies there or the building that's going on? I know Texas is a pretty hot state right now.
Texas is a very hot state, and we all are trying to get there. The challenge with Texas is, from an acquisition perspective, because we've slowly been looking at making an acquisition over there, but everybody in Texas knows that they're in Texas, and so
Okay.
they make sure that they price themselves accordingly. And so we've been looking at Texas, but we kind of follow the money. When you start looking at infrastructure, you start looking at trends on where people are migrating, et cetera. It's south, it's west, it's some of these areas that are friendlier for taxes, friendlier for businesses, and quite frankly, their infrastructure isn't ready for it just yet. So places like Texas, there's no state tax. It's business friendly. A lot of people are moving there, and there's no real infrastructure available to the scale that they need to be able to handle this many people. And so we kind of look at those trends. You start talking about Florida, looking at Georgia, looking at Texas, the Carolinas, Arizona. All of those states are states where people are moving. And if people are moving there, that means that infrastructure has to follow soon behind.
Yeah. Now, what city or cities are you in Texas right now?
Right now, we're just in Dallas, but we've been toying with both Austin and Houston. Currently, in fact, this week, my COO is headed down to Austin to have some conversations around some of their transit work.
Yeah. My son actually lives in Houston. He's with Cushman and Wakefield.
Okay.
There in Houston is director of retail for them. So, and it is the fastest growing city in the country.
Yes, it is.
When you talk about infrastructure, it seems like the place to be right now. It's the fastest growing and most diverse city in the country as well. So it seems to me that is probably one of the places that you would want to earmark and get there as well. So
absolutely, especially when you start talking energy and utilities and fuel, et cetera. Houston's the hub for all of that. And so we are heavily involved in some of those industries as well. So we've been looking at Houston. There's highly likely we'll be in Houston by Q2 next year.
Yeah. So do you do a lot of government work or private work, or is it just a mixture of the two in terms of the work that you guys go after?
We're a little bit of a mixture. I'd say we're probably 60 private and 40 public. We purposefully tried to diversify and get a bit of a mixture going so that, when one goes down or one goes up, we're not, ebbing and flowing with those businesses. So we try to keep a pretty healthy mix.
Mm. So to tell us, how did you get involved in engineering in terms of a career in engineering? What made you want to decide to be an engineer?
Yeah, so I this started with me in high school. Actually, I went to high school, and one of my uh, teachers at the time said, "Hey, you're really good at this math and science thing. Maybe you should consider being an engineer." So I was like, sure, I'll look at it, and end up majoring in engineering, civil engineering, in college at University of Illinois. Came out, did some sales for a while, and realized that I wanted to get back into engineering, and so became an engineer soon after college. Worked for a trade association where I helped to write building codes, and I was surrounded by 1,000 entrepreneurs who are all managing and working in their own businesses, which kind of inspired me to start to do the same. And so back in 2005, I started the Roderick Group, which at the time was Roderick was my middle name, the Rashod Roderick Johnson. So I started the Roderick Group and ended up growing it to about 60 people. And in 2017, made a couple of acquisitions and founded. Acquired a firm called Ardmore Associates, which was a woman-led firm by Cheryl Thomas. She had about 90 people. When we put it together, we were about 140. And that was 7 years ago. Since then, we've over doubled in 7 years, and we're looking to double in the next 3.
Wow. So what year did you actually start your business? What year was it? It wasn't
2005.
2005. So roughly 18 years now that you've been in business. Yeah. That's excellent. So walk us through what you talked about an acquisition. Maybe you're trying to acquire another firm. What does that look like, and how do you identify a firm that you would like to acquire, or at least like to make an offer on?
Yeah, so we're pretty methodical with it. We've made a couple of acquisitions already. Right now, we're not necessarily looking to do anything differently than what we already do. We're just trying to do it in a different geographic area. And so we're looking at firms that do some of the same things that we do in areas across the country. Now, what's funny is I was at a seminar a couple of years ago, and they said that 70% of engineering, architecture, and construction firms do not have a succession plan. 70%.
Wow.
And so when you think about that, I'm right for it. I'm like, hey, I'm 47. We're right in the middle. Let's make it happen. And so we've been looking at who could provide some complementary services to what we do, but in different geographic areas, specifically some of those areas that are pretty hot and growing right now.
Man. I know you said you have right at 300 employees. You like to double that within the next 3 years. So where do you see yourself 5 years from now then? I know you talk about doubling in 3 years in terms of maybe some of the markets or the size of the business, or maybe you branch out into something else.
We've made a commitment at the firm that we are going to be the next national firm. When you think about national firms, they're all some iteration of the same 4 or 5 firms. And so we're getting ready to change the game. We're getting ready to completely take it next level and grow out of a region, grow out of super regional. There's a lot of firms that are super regional or regional, et cetera, but very few that are minority owned that are national firms. And by national, we don't need 50 offices, 50 states, but can do what we do from California to New York, from Montana down to Florida, and everywhere in between. We can do the work. We can do it well. And so we've made that commitment. So I actually see us in the next 5 years increasing our footprint significantly and growing into a national firm.
Yeah. And when I started, doing these podcasts, I really wanted to focus in on STEM and look at some of the major, Black-owned companies that are in the United States. And you were one of them. Actually interviewed Wilbur Millhouse not too long ago. And Mike Sutton is a good friend of mine. He actually had an office here in Springfield. I rented him some space some years ago, and I know he's actually doing some things too in some other states where he's trying to expand his business as well. Tell us about some of the major projects that you've worked on throughout your career. ones that I guess that you're most proud of and that you have that stamp on that you can drive by every day or talk about, and then it's kind of created a legacy for you, if you will?
Yeah, so we've actually been a part of some really cool projects. Currently, we are the program managers for the O'Hare modernization. I guess it's called O'Hare 21. And so they're getting ready to completely revamp O'Hare Airport, make 3 master terminals, a grand central terminal in the middle, and push everybody else to the 5th terminal. And it's a 15-year, $8 billion program. And we are on the joint venture team running that entire project. Yeah, we're running the entire project.
Yes.
So we've been on that for the past 6 years or so. We'll be on it for another 9 at least as we continue to bring O'Hare into the 21st century. The second project is CTA. We're doing a red purple modernization. That's a $2.3 billion upgrade of the system going north on the red and purple and brown lines. And we are once again program managers on the joint venture team, really running that entire project. It's the first design build that they've done with CTA at this scale. And frankly, it's the largest CTA project that they've ever done in history. And so for us to be a part of that as a joint venture team has been amazing. And then last but not least, we are the owner's rep for the Obama Presidential Center.
Wow.
We've been running that since the beginning, since 2017, since it happened. We helped them to, as owners reps, we helped them to find and secure the architects, help them to find and secure the engineers and the designers, as well as all the contractors, and then make sure that all the contractors are doing what they say they're going to do, which is always a challenge, to say the least. Always a challenge. But so if I had to look back on any of those, yeah, and there's been so many others, man. We're down in Florida. We redid the big terminal here in Florida. In Puerto Rico, we helped them to assess the damage and rebuild after Hurricane Maria. We've been on some really, really high profile and really good projects. But I'd be remiss if I in 2025 when the Obama Presidential Center finally opens, I'm going to be excited, and I'm going to be able to point at that and say, Daddy built it.
That is most definitely. Have you had an opportunity to meet President Obama?
I have on numerous occasions, since we're the ones that's kind of building his presidential library. When he stops in town, we've had the opportunity to meet him a few times.
Yeah, there's a story out years ago whenever he was decided he wanted to run for U.S. Senate.
Yeah.
And at the time I was in business and I had a friend of mine, I was a lobbyist, contacted me and said, "Hey, I want you to meet somebody." I said, "Well, who is it?" He said, "It's a guy that's running for U.S. Senate." I said, "What's his name?" He said, "His name was Barack Obama." I say, "Who?"
Yeah.
I said, "How's that guy going to get elected with a name like that?" I said, "They haven't even caught Osama bin Laden yet. That's just too close." Yeah. So he said, "Well, will you at least meet with him?" So I did. I went over and sat down in his office and we talked for about 2 hours, he and I, and the lobbyist friend of mine named Vince Williams. And,
I know Vince.
Yeah.
One of my fraternity brothers.
Oh, okay. And the more we talked, I said, let me get this straight. You went to Harvard. You graduated at the top of your class. You were the president of the Harvard Law Review. He said, "Why are you even fooling with this? You can go somewhere and make $1 million a year walking through the door. Why do you want to do this?" And that's when he told me about he was a community organizer and he wanted to help the people and this. And I said, "Well, I'll tell you what, let me put a fundraiser together for you." I did a fundraiser for him. We raised some money for him here. And I remember he called me 2 days later and, thanking me and said I was the first person downstate that came out for him and he really appreciated it. And I said, "Well, hey, that's cool. I just want you to win." So he said, "Watch TV tonight." I say, "Tonight, what's going on?" Say, "I'm giving a speech." I say, "Well, where you at?" He said, "I'm in Boston. And I'm giving a speech tonight at the Democratic National Convention." He said, "You watch it. It's going to be off the chain." And, then after that, the rest is history. He was off to the races. And I think the last time I talked to him was the day he decided he was running for president. And I was there and I got a chance to talk to him. Then after that, he got so layered with everybody, I couldn't even get to him or, see him, the phone number I had, so I just wished him well. And, it was a good thing. So it was kind of something I'll always remember. that I kind of played a small hand, if you will, and the kind of projecting him, into the presidency, or at least to the Senate at least. So that's great.
And I'm sure he'll remember that. I'm sure he always will remember the people who helped.
Yeah, and that's something he told me. He said, "I never forget those people that helped me," and I never asked him for anything. I just thought he was the best candidate at the time in terms of those that were out there and the most qualified. And he had told me that whenever he had ran for Congress before, and he got spanked by Bobby Rush, but he just didn't give up though. So it is what it is. So I was glad to see that happen, and it was good for him. I tell you what, you worked on some major. You definitely have a legacy. And just some of the things that you told me, just short term, and that's just in Illinois. That's not even counting some of the other cities that you worked in. I'm curious of what city in Florida have you that you're doing business in?
Yeah, we're my second largest office is in Orlando, and so we've been working in Orlando on the Space Coast. In fact, we should have a pretty cool announcement in the next day or so about a large project that we won on the Space Coast.
Oh wow!
So we've been working on the Space Coast for the past 7 years or so, been pushing to try to get this large project. And I think we finally got it. So man, I apologize, man. My light is just not working right, and I'm trying to get it.
Yeah, I can see you fine though. It's okay. We got a good picture on my side here, so it's pretty good. No problem. So do you have to travel yourself personally a lot? Do you have your staff that kind of sniff these things out for you, and you just kind of go in and close the deal, or what? How's that?
The answer is yes, both. I travel. I'm on an airplane almost every week. It feels like. Going to various places, talking to different people, working on different things. But at the same time, I have a really highly competent staff that also works and does some of the stuff as well. And so I have a COO, just hired a CFO, and a couple of high-level VPs that are solid people, man, that really know this industry and able to help us to grow inside of it.
Yeah. And what have been some of the major challenges that you've had to overcome since you started your business? I know just getting off the ground is probably the hardest part in terms of having the resources and staff and starting out. I know when I interviewed Wilbur, he said when he started his business, he was delivering pizzas on the side just to make ends meet. So I mean, that's from an entrepreneur standpoint. Those are encouraging stories to let people know that. You got to burn the candle at both ends and basically eat what you kill. So,
absolutely. I've been fortunate, man, and so I lived off of my savings for years. I don't think I took a salary for the first 3 years at all, and I was over 20 people before I started taking salary. To this day, today, I'm not the highest paid person in the company. And I don't feel like I have to be. I'm comfortable. I'm good. But if someone performs and does well, I think they should be rewarded for it. And so I don't have a problem with rewarding them for it. My biggest challenge today, right now, is perception. It's all about perception. Right now, I think there is a national perception around what a minority-owned firm can do, what they're capable of, what they have, what they can and can't do, et cetera. And so there's this box that they seem to put minority firms in and say, okay, you play in this box, not realizing that we have the same qualifications, the same engineering degrees, the same MBAs as everybody else, and we want to play outside of this box. And so I'm committed to changing the perception of Black business in America. When you think about it, we don't all have access to capital problems. We don't have problems getting people. We don't have problems scaling up to be able to do things. And those are all the things that are typically forced upon us, or they think we have access or challenges with, and we don't. Not all of us do. And so the ones that don't, we should be able to go and grow in a manner without having our own clients, or in fact, our own people sometimes really start talking about how, well, we're not going to be able to do it because they don't have access. They don't have this. And that's just not the case. I mean, we do. And so the perception is real. And a lot of these programs that make you graduate out and all the other stuff, and that's cool. I understand all of that. But you haven't seen discrimination until you're sitting across the table from somebody who you used to partner with. That's when the discrimination really happens. I was at this one meeting where gentleman looks over and says, and it was very clear that we were the favorite to win this. And he looked over and said to me, "You just remember, you work for me at the airport."
Mm.
And I said, "Interesting. Well, you just remember that you work for me at CTA. You work for me at Obama Physical Center. You work for me. So since we're talking about controlling someone else's money, I'm controlling significantly more of yours than you are of mine. So,
Mm.
well, and he tried to back it up. I didn't mean it like that. And this and that. Yes, you did. You exactly meant it like that.
Mm.
So that discrimination and that perception of what your place is as a Black-owned business and know your place and stay in your place is real. It's real. And, I'm here to fight it. I'm here to really change the perception of Black business in America.
Well, kudos to you. And I know that's very important in terms of the perception and, having the capacity to, to scale the business up and to be able to champion that. I mean, I take my hat off to you because I definitely know how difficult it is and having been there, some years ago and realizing what it takes. I noticed looking on your bio as well that you are affiliated, I think, with the Black Chamber of Commerce I believe in Florida.
I am both the Black Chamber of Commerce of Florida and in Illinois, quite a bit. I'm a firm believer that to whom much is given, much is required, and so I do my best to give back, man, and try to make sure that the people who got me here and the people who are doing the good work of helping Black businesses stay in business and stay being helpful. And so I do my part everywhere I go. I do my part to make sure that I'm doing that.
Yeah. As far as your engineering, your staff, I mean, how difficult is it to recruit now in this particular type of climate?
The biggest challenge right now is finding staff. And so what we've done is we've taken a long-term approach at this. We recognize and know that we're going to need people 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And so we went back into the schools and we're having conversations with 7th graders, 8th graders, 10th graders, because I'm convinced that in 5 years, when they graduate college or when they graduate high school, I want them to come and work for us. I want them to love math and science to the point where they're going to come and work for us. And so if we can sponsor or support or inspire some Black kid to be able to come in and actually get involved in math and science at 7th grade, 8th grade. High school is too late. By the time you start high school, man, there's so many other competing interests. There's girls, there's boys, there's sports, there's cars. I mean, there's all types of other competing interests that if you don't develop this love for math and science in 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, you're not going to develop that love in high school. You'll be able to refine it. You'll be able to hone it, get better at it, but you're not going to develop that love while you're in high school. And so we've committed ourselves to getting Black kids in particular to love math and science before they get to high school, get better at it, because what comes easier is typically what they major in. And when math and science is easy to you because you love it, then we have a chance at getting more diversity in this industry. But we're starting early. A lot of things that took degrees before don't take degrees now with the advent of some of this technology, et cetera. And so we're really looking for not just degreed engineers, but other people who we know can do the work.
Along those lines, when you talked about that, tell us a little bit about as far as your community involvement. I know you talked about talking to the kids and earlier. What other things are you involved in within the community that actually, that are dear to your heart?
Yeah, so we sponsor a school. So we're in Inglewood right now at Benjamin E. Mays School. And so this is our 2nd year in a row. We send an engineer in there every month. And we teach 7th and 8th graders about something new in engineering. We had last year we did bridge building. Last year we did electrical engineering. We did forces and weights. And so every month now we're sending somebody new, a different engineer, to teach them and show them some portion of engineering. And hopefully, again, it'll spark some interest. It'll spark their knowledge of wanting to get to know more, and then we can have more of this, more students that look like us But the most important part of Benjamin E. Mays that I really like is I remind them that I'm from where they're from. I'm born and raised on the south side of Chicago. And I went to school, and I wasn't the best school. I wasn't the best at school. I got kicked out twice. I got a degree in 7 years. I got a 2.1 GPA. I mean, I was not great in school, but I persevered. I got through it, and I got a degree. And then once I got the degree, I became better at school because I was paying for it. But I showed them that you can wear jeans, you can wear Jordans, you can listen to hip hop, you can do all the same stuff that you do and still run a multi-million-dollar, $100+ million engineering firm. You could still be you. You don't have to be anybody else. You don't have to act or talk or walk like anybody else. Be you. And you still can be a CEO of a $100 million engineering firm nationally. And so for me, that's the best part for me, is just showing them, I believe that you can't be what you can't see. And so I'm doing everything I can to show them that, yeah, I live in the in the proverbial hood on the south side of Chicago, and I listen to the same music, do all the same things. But when it comes time for me to run my business, I'm about the business, and you can too.
That's excellent. Tell us a little bit about your family, Rashod, I guess, in terms of, how you were raised or married, children.
Yeah. I'm born and raised on the south side of Chicago, 71st and Jeffrey area, South Shore area. My mom was a teacher and then principal. My dad worked for the post office. Just good old fashioned family, man. And they instilled in me all things family. And so not only am I divorced with a 14-year-old, but I'm getting married next week.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. Next week. So I wasn't jaded, even though, things didn't work out, I wasn't jaded. And so I have a 14-year-old daughter who is looking at all of the high school options that she has right now, which is all very interesting and fun. And I have a fiance who's a banker. And so she's getting ready to join the family. It's an exciting time for me, man. I can't even complain, but just a good old fashioned Black family with, core values and integrity, and taught me how to do things right. And so in that vein, I'm really trying to do the same for other people.
Well, I know you have a sister that's really sharp.
Yes, I do.
That I think quite a bit of, and she's very sharp, as a matter of fact. So I can see where this all comes from as well. And I know how important it is for family.
Yes, it is.
To be able to, to get you started, to mold you, and then, just to make it. So that's very important. So now, answer me this: is your daughter interested in becoming a part of the business, or are you going to push her towards that, or just kind of let her?
Neither. I make sure she's good at math and science, and so she is good in math and science. But I'm not going to force it on her. I'm not going to push her. If that's what she wants to do, that's great. If not, I'm here to support her in whatever it is she decides to do. I do want to back up though. You said my sister, man. Listen, my sister and I were raised. Thank God my parents are still together 51 years later, and we were raised in a very unique home. And I didn't realize how unique that home was until you start looking around and realizing that, wait a minute, my parents are still together. There was no scandals. We didn't get beat as kids. Well, a little bit, but you got a Black mama, you're gonna get beat. That's just what happens, right? But man, I'm so proud of my sister, man. She is, we're 8 years apart. And in 40 years, she'll be 40 next week. Not next week. She'll be 39 next week. But she's managed to be the head of a $7 billion agency with 800 people for the 5th largest state in America. That is absolutely amazing to be 38 years old and to be able to do that. And I try to counsel her and we talk about things at her job and talk about things at mine all the time, man. But I love that girl to death. And she's a real hero, man. I tell you, I do okay in business, but I'm not running anything close to what she's running, and she does it like with ease. And I'm so proud of her, man.
Yeah, I think it's just the tip of the iceberg for her in
I
terms
agree.
of what she can do and her talent, skills, and just the future that she has. So, and to be so young, so she's going to be probably right up there with you in a couple years. You know, running $100 million company of her own. So,
More than that. More than
yeah,
that. Keep trying
yeah.
to get her. Come on home, y'all. Come on home. Come on home.
Oh wow, that is so great, man! I tell you, this has been really a good interview, and I'm really enjoying it, talking to you and getting to know about you. Tell us a little bit about some of the hobbies that you have. I know, how do you spend your time rewinding and relaxing? What are some of the things that you like to do?
Recently, it's been about family, and so my whole this fall has been researching high schools, visiting high schools, etc. Before that is preparing for this wedding, preparing to get married. But outside of that, I'm a car collector. I like to collect cars. So I have my dad has a '75 Stingray Corvette that he gave to me that started my Corvette collection. And so now I'm trying to get and collect as many as I can in different eras, different types. Yeah, I really enjoy cars a lot, and so I'm that guy that collects them in a big way. So I'm just starting my collection right now, but hopefully I'll be able to get all 8 models sooner than later.
Hmm. Now, tell us a little about, as far as growing up. I'm sure your parents were role models for you. But outside of that, any other role models or mentors that you've had that have kind of guided you along the way when you first got in business, and that you still consider to be a mentor?
Yeah, I've had a few, man. That's one of the wonderful things about being mentored is they come from various places. So when I first got started in business, there were a couple of guys who shouldn't have helped me. They had no reason to help me at all, right? They had no vested interest. There were no monetary interest, but they saw me and figured, you know what, let's figure out how to help him. And they were able to help me in my engineering career, starting the business in a big way, whether or not it's paying me early or figuring out how to make uh, uh, decisions or access to capital. I'll never forget one of my mentors, Walsh Construction. I've known them for years. When I was in high school, I actually interned there. And years ago, I was looking for a new bank, and I was talking to Dan Walsh, Senior. And I said, "Yo, I'm looking for a bank." He said, "Well, what are you doing next week?" And I said, "I don't know." He said, "All right, meet me in the office Wednesday at lunch." I'm like, "All right." So I show up Wednesday at 11:30, and I walk into his office, and he walks in and says, "Okay." He had the president of BMO Harris, had the president of Chase, had the president of this other bank, and was like, "Yo, this is Rashod. I'm getting ready to go to lunch. Somebody work this out and get Rashod what he needs." And then walked out.
Mm.
And then I walked out of there with 3 banks that all wanted to do business with Rashod now. And so it's little stuff like that, man, that's been invaluable. And so what I've done is I've tried to make that my mantra, right? I want to help out other people. I want to be able to give the access that I have to as many people as possible. But on mentorship, my biggest two, frankly, are my mother and father. They are not just responsible for me being here, but teaching me about things that are important. More importantly, things that are not important. We get so hung up, especially as Black men. Sometimes I feel like we get hung up on the wrong things, and so I let a lot of stuff slide and roll because it's just in the grand scheme of things, it's not that important. And so my mother, Glenda Johnson, my father, Robert Johnson, man, they instilled in Raven and I a value system, a work ethic that I believe carries us to this day and will continue to carry us. Last but not least, I'll tell you, my mentor these days are my 14-year-old daughter. It's crazy how we think of mentors as people who are older and
Mhm.
always. We can always learn from people. And I had a rough day one day, and I was on the phone, and I was not being very professional with somebody that worked for me. I was hot, And this was probably 7 or 8 years ago. She was 6, and she heard me clean cuss this dude out. And I wasn't proud, but I was angry. And she said, Daddy, you probably owe him an apology. And in my head, I'm like, I don't owe him an apology. He shouldn't have said it. He shouldn't have did it. And then I realized I did that in front of my daughter. And I needed to be a better role model for her. How can I expect her to treat people with respect when I can't do it in front of her? And so I made sure I got her back in the room. I called him the next day. I apologized in front of her. But that was all because she was the one saying, Daddy, you probably should apologize to him. I wouldn't like it very much if you spoke that way to me. And so, man, one of my biggest role models today are my 14-year-old daughter. She's gives me purpose and reason on why I do it, but more importantly, how I do it. Right.
Man, that is excellent. Boy, man, this has been a very great interview, Rashod. I just really appreciate you taking the time. I just have a couple more questions for you because I know you're a busy person, but I just want to tell you how much I appreciate the show. Or do any of the HBCUs have engineering programs in terms of that you can recruit from?
Oh yeah, and we do. I have my recruiting team. We're at Howard, Florida A&M, and Tuskegee. Florida A&M and Tuskegee specifically are known for having engineering programs. We have a few of our employees that are both Tuskegee and Florida A&M alums. But I think as engineering and technology and everything grows, you're starting to see more and more HBCUs develop curriculum around technology and develop curriculum around engineering and the sciences and STEM. And so I think we're going to have a lot more options as it pertains to having some of those schools represented. The other thing is, man, we oftentimes don't get the same opportunities as some other people. And so we have to be intentional and deliberate about going back to our schools and looking for people who look like us and making sure that we are the ones helping us. No one ever apologizes for helping people who look like them except for us. And I just don't understand why. And so we go back to those schools. We look for African-American students who want to be in technology and engineering and science, and we give them opportunities. And the vast majority of the time, man, I'm a firm believer that if you set your expectation here, people are going to meet it. And if you set your expectation here, people are going to meet it. Yeah. And we've seen that.
Yeah. It's interesting you talk about Tuskegee. Here, probably about 3 weeks ago, I was going through some old pictures and clippings, whatever. I was a baseball player years ago. And I remember playing an all-star game in Wrigley Field when I was in college. And I pitched real well. And about 3 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. It was from a guy's name was Jim Martin. He was the head baseball coach at Tuskegee Institute. And he offered me a full ride to go to Tuskegee Institute to play baseball after junior college. But I signed with the Cardinals after I got out of junior college and played about 6 or 7 years with them. But I just ran across that letter that I kept it it was full ride, everything paid for it. And he just wanted me to come down there to Tuskegee. And my son graduated from HBCU as well. He went to Prairie View A&M. So the experience that you have at the HBCUs are just, I remember when he called me when he went there and he said, Dad, I feel like every day is Juneteenth. So I said, well, you better make sure you go to them Juneteenth classes too.
Hey, that's why I couldn't go. I was going to be distracted, man. I was like, that's too much of a distraction for me.
But I will say that he did graduate. He graduated with honors, and so I was glad that he went there and took care of business as well. And he was an athlete as well.
Kudos to you, Dad. Kudos to you.
Yeah. So he was a good kid. So both of them, and my daughter actually lives in Houston as well. So, and she's with Cushman and Wakefield as well. So they're both in the real estate game, and we've been in it as a family for a number of years as well. So it's great then. Well, Rashod, I tell you what, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I know we had kind of earmarked about 45 minutes, and I know you're a busy person. Is there anything else that you'd like to add or say or talk about that maybe I didn't ask you that you'd want to convey to our listeners?
I really just want to say, I think it's incumbent upon us to give back. We all, if ever you heard somebody say that they're self-made, they are a liar. There's no such thing as a self-made person, a self-made millionaire, self-made business person. There's no such thing. At all times, somebody has some help. Now, it might not have always come in the form of a check. It might not have always come in the form of some help. It might have been that one contract that you didn't deserve to get, but they gave it to you anyway. It might have been you got into a little trouble and somebody bailed you out. Whatever it is, we all had help. So understanding that we all had help, we have a responsibility to give back and help others. I don't look at competition. Everyone always asks me, well, who is your competition? I don't have competition because I know that if I do everything that I'm supposed to do, then the competition won't matter. And so I say all that to say, I'm okay helping people, even if they're in my own industry, even if they're taking contracts or projects from us, because I know that me helping them is going to repay me tenfold. And so, if I leave here with nothing else, you'll know that Rashod helped out as many folks as he could.
Man, that is great, and to have that mindset, I mean, that in itself is a legacy because now you'll be able to see your fingerprints throughout different parts of the industry and individuals that maybe you helped get started. And I think that is one of the reasons why I started doing this podcast is to make sure that I highlight people such as yourself, that everybody around the country know about, hey, we can do great things. We got people that are doing great things. So I commend you. And again, everything that I can do to help to promote you or let people know about you. Just the bottom line is that to expose you to other people, because we need to see this, in terms of giving us hope and be able to aspire to be, other things outside of a basketball player or an athlete,
Right.
Because not everybody's going to do that. The odds are on that happen are very, very slim, to be able to play a professional sport. So we have to push our kids past that, and not to say that they can't be a dream of theirs, but just don't put all your eggs in one basket because the odds are not in your favor. So, but you have better odds doing some of the things that you do.
And you know what I say all the time? I got all of the same stuff that all the ball players have. I just did it a little differently.
Yeah, and your career lasts a little longer. You 40 years old. You're dead in the water as an athlete at 40 or 37 to 38. Actually, you pretty much you're done because you don't have the speed, you don't have the eye coordination, and it's just the way of the game is. Here you can basically be in business until they 100 years old. You can still get up and go to the office or whatever every day. So that's great, Rashod. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and I want to end this podcast right now. I want to end it, and then I just kind of keep you on for just a couple seconds. But I really, truly have enjoyed this. Again, and hopefully we can do this again sometime. Maybe I can bring, all the three engineers on together, and all you all can talk and just kind of let people know. I've been have the opportunity to interview several individuals. I used to have a newspaper at one time, with a Black-owned newspaper, and probably one of the top ones in the country. At one time, and I'd interviewed stars and athletes, all sorts of different people, but all for the purpose of trying to inspire our people and let them know that, hey, we're doing a lot of stuff. We're not just shooting, robbing, killing. We got some people that do some great things, and we want to make sure we highlight that because we get enough negative press already. So that is so important. So I'm going to end the recording right now. If you can just stay on just a couple seconds.
Yeah.